Alrighty, here we go. My name is Travis Neville. Travis Neville Podcast. This is my most recent book. It's called Ideal Man, Mastering Masculinity. You can get that any place books are sold. You want to get on Amazon, it's there. Barnes & Noble, barnesandnoble.com. I don't think it's on Thrift Books yet, but it will be soon, I'm sure. You can get a good deal there. You can get it on my website, travisneville.com. You can get it at a few select bookstores in Harbor Springs, Michigan. Fancy place to live for fancy people, and I'm a member of the American Legion there, which is pretty cool. I was thinking, I was at my workout today, and I was thinking about solitude, and this isn't going to be the theme of the show, but I've become almost like a recluse, man. Like it seems like kind of an author thing to do, to be like, again, away from everybody. And I think that there's a purity to that. I think that, you can really get, again, your thoughts straight when you're by yourself a lot. I'm finding that it's addictive. Like, I just want to be by myself most of the time. I love having my friends around, my family, stuff like that. And I make myself go out once a week and talk to people and it's just, out in the world. But, man, it's not very often. I find that, that I'm liking that more and more, just being by myself, which is, I suppose that's a good thing. I can't see why it's bad. I think it'd be way worse if you didn't ever want to be alone. I think that would be a challenge. Um, anyway, yeah, I just was thinking about that, how much I really just enjoy it, it's good shit. Um, so I caught a post today by Jack Donovan, and you guys know I'm a big fan of his. He was my guest here on the show for episode 100. Certainly one of the peaks for me of this whole pursuit. I'm proud of the fact that I've got a few books. I'm proud of the fact that this will be, I think, episode 117 of my podcast. I'm proud that I've made such connections with really impressive, very intelligent, well thought out, well read people. I'm really proud of that. But right at the top of that list is Jack, super sharp guy. He has thought through a lot of things much more deeply than I have. We align on a lot of stuff, but his situation is a little different than mine. So when I start talking about men relating with women, that's not a thing he goes into. He's just pure raw masculinity, which is cool for its purity for sure. But anyway, he made this post, and if you haven't read his stuff, do it. If you're going to read one book this year, make it The Way of Men. So his first book is called The Way of Men. It's fucking awesome. It's foundational for sure. Anyway, he makes this post, and he's talking about, human nature, essentially. He's talking about how people have been essentially the same way since the beginning of people, basically. And I want to extrapolate on that. Like, as he started talking about it, I'm like, oh man, there's a lot here. Like, I want to dig into this. What is the nature of humanity? What is there? What things are working and what aren't? And before we get rolling on this, on the nature of man, so to speak, I think we'll call this human nature probably. I want to lay down some ground rules here. I say this in my new book, and I wish I would have said it on my very first podcast and in the very first line of my very first book. These rules of engagement I want to put down. This one is very important. You cannot make rules for exceptions. What I mean by that is, let me say it this way. Exceptions do not invalidate rules. Okay? Let me give you an example of that. Murder is illegal, and that's a rule, right? Murder has been illegal since the beginning of time. Thou shalt not kill, etc. But let's say there's a situation where somebody's got a gun to your head, and I am in the room, and I'm pretty much always armed, and I have the excuse me, I have the shot and I can shoot that fucker in the head and save your life potentially, certainly end that person's life. Um, and in that case, I am absolutely the cause of that individual's death. I pulled the trigger. I caused the death of that person. Now, am I going to go to jail for murder? Probably not. Okay. That was a life-saving situation. That person put himself in a position where, he made the choices that got him to that spot, and I made the choices that got you out of it. So should we, because I should not be convicted of murder for that, does that mean we should make murder illegal? Or does that mean we should make murder legal because of that one exception? Of course not. Of course it doesn't make murder illegal. And so often when I'm doing this stuff, definitely when I'm on the damn social media, um, I get a little feedback on my books to this end, but everybody wants to tell me about how, oh, that's not always how it is. I know people who don't do it that way. I know people who don't think that way. Awesome. Congratulations, you found an exception. That does not mean that the rule is invalid. Okay, when I say that men are stronger physically than women, that's a rule. Okay, are there exceptions? Yeah, sure there are. But it doesn't mean that the rule is not fucking true. Okay, so know that as I go through this shit. All right, exceptions do not invalidate rules. Okay, now that we got that laid down, let's get into the sort of the meat here. In Since the beginning of time, humans have operated in a certain way. Um, these are laws of humanity. Men have been more aggressive than women. Men have been more prone to lethal violence than women. Women have been more nurturing, more likely to, be in the home taking care of children. Are there exceptions? Of course there are. But that's the fucking rule, okay? For 99% of the world. How about this? 99.9% of human history, that's the way it's been, okay? Um, that's human nature. Some other pieces of human nature. One, for sure, people are selfish, okay? At their very root, everything you do is self-profiting. From getting up in the morning, you know, getting clean, going to work, every piece of that is for gains for you, something that you can gain. You want to look good, smell good, be good at work, so you clean up before you go. You want to be on time, you don't want to get fired, so you get up on time and you have some self-discipline there. And none of this is bad, right? You go to work, you make money because you want to have things, you want to support your family, whatever it is. All that makes you feel good. Ultimately, that's self-serving, even if your whole drive is to help others, which, that's me. I mean, I don't write these books for myself. I'm not famous. I'm not getting any, I make some money every month, but I can't even live on it. Like I'm not rich either, is what I'm telling you. I'm doing this to help people, to help the world. And that doesn't make me any better than you. It's a thing that I know I need to have in my pocket, so to speak, when I go to bed at night. I need to know I'm doing something, something good, something that's permanent. It's going to stay there. It's a legacy of sorts. I don't have children as a legacy, so this is what I got. So I'll make the best of it, right? So in that way, yeah, I'm serving myself by doing what I do. And in that way, you are serving yourself by doing what you do. So when I say that people are inherently selfish, I'm not saying that as, and so fuck them, and so people suck, and so people need to change. No, I'm not. There's no judgment there at all. It's an observation. So if you can operate knowing that, if you can go around the world, go around your world when you're at work, when you're at home, and know that everybody around you is basically operating in the same way, well, then you can make decisions based on that. Then you can make adjustments based on that. Then you know kind of what to see, what to expect from them. So you kind of have an idea of what's coming next. If you know that people are, essentially out for themselves, you know, it's okay. It makes you less likely to be disappointed. It makes you less likely to be hurt. I had a buddy in high school who, great guy. I played football and ran track with the guy, and we spent some time hanging out. went on spring break together, a bunch of other guys, and I knew him to be a good buddy, a good teammate. But I also knew that he'd fuck anything with a skirt. So if I was dating a girl or interested in a girl, I didn't tell him and I didn't bring him around her or her around him because I knew what he was about, and that's okay, you know? So you make adjustments. You adjust, right? Um, yeah, you figure out what somebody's about and you adjust to them. There's not ever going to be a single person where you align with everything. It's not going to happen. So figure out where you do align and keep your worlds in that arena. Keep your lives together when you're connecting with that person, just in that one area, and you won't be disappointed. Not hear about just, oh, let's not get disappointed, everybody. I mean, that's a smoother, cleaner way to live your life, right? I think that people in general, to that end, are pretty lazy. You're going to do exactly as much as you need to do to get to where you think you need to be or where you want to be. Probably not much else. A lot of times it's fear driven too. I'm thinking of specifically about people who choose to work for other people instead of starting their own business where you can make a lot more money and have a lot more freedom, a lot more sort of control over your life. A lot of people are afraid to do that. And a lot of people just are lazy, don't want to put the work in that it takes to start a business. And that's not a judgment either. That's just how people are. And so you accept that. I had a conversation on the phone yesterday with a former student of mine named Amber. She's very intelligent, sharp. I've enjoyed watching her grow up and kind of battle through adulthood. And kind of the same thing, the conversation we had, I was thinking to myself, I never want her to be in that situation where she's expecting more of herself than she should. I never want her to be in a situation where she's expecting more of other people than she should or than she rightfully can. And I told her, listen, you're probably pretty much always going to be the smartest person in the room. And so instead of being disappointed that they can't think like you do, sorry, you have to accept that they're not where you are. And in fact, use your intelligence to maybe kind of help them along. And not in a condescending way. You're not pushing anybody's wheelchair here, but you can sort of help them along. Maybe teach them a little bit, get them moving forward. And because if you don't, when you sit back pissed off and frustrated that they can't think like you can think, well, then you're going to be disappointed all the time. And further, you're wasting the gift. Okay? You you went to college and did all these things, but you're as smart as you were ever going to be. All those things you did made you more educated. They didn't make you any smarter. You're pretty fucking smart. You started out way out here, and that's exactly where you still are. And you're working around all these people that don't have the abilities you do. You're wasting your gift if you don't use it to help others, right? I don't know if she really totally got the point there, but hopefully she did. Anyway, that acceptance of that, all right, people only have certain abilities. That's huge. It's exactly the same as accepting that people generally are going to be greedy, lazy. People are going to be biased. Okay, pretty much all the time. When you ask somebody what happened, well, what'd you see? And any policeman will tell you this. When you have a first person, what do they call them? Witness. When you have an eyewitness, they're just going to see everything through their own life experience, through their own lenses. They're going to see their feelings are going to be based on what they've experienced in life and not the same as what somebody else did. So even if they're not emotionally involved or have nothing to gain from, say, being a witness to a crime or something like that, their own life experiences are still going to color what they saw. A rape victim is going to see a male-female interaction that didn't go well, very different than someone who's been accused of rape before untruthfully, right? They're going to see that thing totally differently just because of their own personal bias. And that's totally normal. That's human. Okay, it's totally part of human nature to be greedy, lazy, selfish, and biased. Those are all things that we hear as negatives. And I'm not going to say they're positives. I'm just saying that they are. Okay, that's the way people are. And if you operate through your life thinking that they aren't, you're just going to be disappointed all the time. And this kind of gets us to the crux of this. I think that's one of the big differences between the left and the right in our country. And I really don't like getting political here. That's not my jam. I'm about making men better. But understanding this, not necessarily making judgments on it, understanding this can really help you. I think that on the left in the U.S., they are ignoring basically everything I've said since the beginning of this recording. I think that people on the left truly believe that all humans are warm-hearted, excellent, wonderful people, and giving and loving and caring. It's a very sort of female perspective, which that is what the left is. The left liberalism is feminine, conservatism, that's masculine. Um, I get it. You want to see everybody as warm and beautiful and wonderful because you want to see yourself that way. Okay. And I did a show, this is years ago, I think I called it value projection or virtue projection, something like that. I remember specifically talking about my mom. Great lady, wonderful, warm, caring, all the things that you'd ever expect from a mom and a person. And she thinks that way. She's like, well, why can't we all just, or people should just, or why can't, she's a fan of the commune in the denotative sense. Like, hey, like 100 people living on acreage and self-sufficient, everybody's got a job, and why can't we just do that? Um, and I agree, if there were only 100 to 150 people at a time, that would work. Okay. It has worked over and over and over again throughout human nature, through human society. But we got a lot more than that. And when you get over 150, eventually you're going to get that one third who wants to be in power and wants to take advantage of everybody. And that's why communism doesn't work. It's just that simple. And there's another piece of human nature. It isn't everybody, but there are those wolves out there who want to take advantage of the weak. They want to lie, cheat, steal because they are greedy, lazy, biased, just like everyone else. They just apply it differently, and maybe they're a little more aggressive about it. Maybe they're a little more, I don't know, megalomaniacal, something like that. But yeah, on the left, I think that they forget what human nature is. They want to believe that somehow that humans have evolved past our primal animalistic nature. They want to believe that we're not that, we're above that, we're different than that. When they see what's happened in the past, when they look at, again, socialism or communism, well, that didn't work because people just weren't evolved enough now. Now we are. They want to believe that humans are amazing and wonderful, and we've reached the peak of civilization, and we're finally ready. No, we're the same fucking animals we've always been. I hate to break it to you, but over the last 200 years, technology has ramped up like a motherfucker. Okay, you have tech at your fingertips that we've never had before. You have access to information that is absolutely unprecedented. I can remember as a kid hearing conversations, people talking back and forth. This is how things are. Another person, this is how things are. And they're probably both wrong, and there's no way to figure it out. They couldn't just Google a thing. You know what I mean? Like, imagine that. Most of you who are young can't do that. But anyway, so access to information and education, those are good things for sure. I can't see exactly how they're bad unless the wrong group has control of that. Uh, but that doesn't make you any smarter. It doesn't change your DNA. It doesn't change your genetics. Okay, we're all still animals. We're bio-operated, biofueled, organic, carbon-based beings. We're really no different than any other animal that's ever walked the planet Earth. Um, yeah, you're exactly the same genetically. So this whole idea that, hey, oh, gender is a social construct and women can do anything men can do and men should be more feminine, and it's just fucking bullshit. It's a costume. It's a big idea. It's an ideal. It's that leftist idea that we have evolved beyond who we really are at our core. We're animals. You eat food, you sleep, you fuck, you take dumps. All of us do. No different than any other animal on the planet. Maybe we have a more evolved system of communication. That's going to be hard to argue that we don't, but you're still an animal. And animals you still have your lizard brain back there making a lot of decisions for you. Okay, it's just that you have your cognitive brain sort of rationalizing those decisions, right? You think about, like, I remember I read that, I talked about that book, The Happiness Hypothesis, where the guy basically says that, who you are as a human is an elephant with a pretty smart individual riding it. Now, at any point, that elephant can just go do its own thing, and the guy riding it really can't do anything about it. But if that elephant does do that, then the guy is there to explain it away later, like an attorney, right? Like to say, oh, this is why we did it, and here's why it happened, and blah blah blah. But really, it was just the animal making its own decisions. Okay, and I'm not trying to deliver bad news. I'm not trying to belittle the human race. I'm just encouraging you to accept what you are, because until you do that, you're again going to keep setting yourself up for disappointment. So again, with the left, I think we've got a situation here. We got a bunch of people who probably mean well. I think those who vote that way, they mean to vote for kindness and warmth and caring and compassion and healing your fellow man. And not there's none of that is bad. But what they don't realize is the people who are actually making decisions in that party are just using that shit that I just said as a flag to wave in front of you and say, hey, this is what you're voting for. This is who we are. This is what we're about. When really they're just about power. No different than any other political group that's ever existed in humanity. Okay? That's again, greed, laziness, bias, selfishness. Okay, that's what those people are doing up there. And they're just using a very complex set of propaganda to get you to believe in what they're doing. But again, even if you are flying that flag, you can't make laws, you can't change cultures, you can't make ideals that are based on a high-minded, super optimistic estimation of humanity and specifically the behavior of humanity. Okay, um, you can't do that because most humans aren't there. Okay, that's just what you were thinking when you did it. But ultimately, we still have people who are going to rape, rob, steal, murder because of greed, laziness, bias, selfishness. Okay. Whatever that person chooses to do, they got that rationalizer there telling them, oh, it's okay. And here's why we did it. All right. So you can't change laws on that. Instead, and let's get to this other big idea here. You got two choices here. And I had this conversation. Actually, I think I sent it as a text to my friend Amber. It was a year ago or so. I said, you can change the whole world to adjust your ideals, or you can adjust your ideals. One of those is a whole lot easier than the other one. Okay. Um, yeah, one's a whole lot easier than the other. You are best suited to do what I'm telling you right now, and that's to accept the world and people as they are, and then act accordingly. And I don't mean be an asshole and say fuck them. I mean, well, I think I know what motivates this individual, and so that's the language I'm sort of going to speak to them at. And much like I encouraged her to be in that meeting, in those meetings, you've got to kind of meet them where they are. This is a concept that uh, I've just learned recently. You know, with all the stuff that I do, the books and the podcast, I get some awesome wisdom, man. I really do. And a lot of it comes from other people. Sometimes I figure stuff out, but this idea of meeting someone where they are, I had heard the phrase 100 times before, and I didn't really get it. Then I had a conversation with my friend Sarah, and she told me, uh, I kind of figured it out. And it means this. Like, say you have, I like to use the example of your boy getting bullied at school. So your boy's getting bullied at school. He comes home, and mom is concerned about his feelings. So let's say he's a fourth grader. She's concerned with his feelings. She doesn't want his feelings hurt, doesn't want him getting hurt. Of course, she wants to protect him. She wants to keep him safe. All good things. But you, as a father, you know, her going down to the principal's office and giving him a stern finger wagging, or going and calling the other boy's mother, or all the things that mom's going to want to do to protect her son, all they're going to do is make him into a pussy. They're going to make him into someone who believes that his well-being and even his personal safety is the responsibility of others. And they should be more concerned with the shame of those who breach the rules he set for himself, should be stronger than the desire to actually stop them from breaching the rules to begin with. That being the case, male versus female perspective, obviously I'm leaning on one side there, but in order for you, father, to get that conversation to happen and to not sound like or look like in her eyes to not look like a savage, you've got to meet her where she is. And what that means is she's in her feelings. So you sit down with her and you say, listen, I remember what it was like to be a fourth grade boy getting bullied. And here is how I felt. I felt ashamed and I felt embarrassed and I felt sad and I felt scared. And it was all of that was terrible. And the only solution for me to get through those feelings, to deal with them, was to take some things into my own hands. I had to do that. Because ultimately, I knew I was the only one who was always going to be there. My mom wasn't going to be there. My dad wasn't, principal wasn't going to be there on the bus, when I'm dealing with this bully. So that's what you do. You meet her where she is. She's in her feelings. So let's talk about the feelings part of this. Okay, you don't just come at it hard and say, well, he's going to be a pussy if you don't. And you just look like a fucking asshole. You got an argument with your wife now. She's more upset than she was. Your son now hears you arguing. That's not any good. And he's getting mixed signals. His mom's telling him one thing, his dad's telling him the other. So you meet her where she is. She's in her feelings. That's what you talk about. So that's what it means, meeting somebody where they are. And essentially, that's where I'm coming at with this whole podcast here. Figure out where somebody is, meet them there. Find a way. It makes a whole lot more sense to make laws that assume the worst in people than it does to make laws that assume the best of people. We'll say rules. How about that? We'll say rules. I think about my gym, and I don't know if she listens to this podcast, but I know a couple of the guys who I work out with there do. And the signs that I see up around there, like there's this thing about, hey, you got to have a second pair of shoes when you come in. Perfectly reasonable, especially in the winter. So you come in wearing one pair of shoes, and she's got cubbies there, nice changing area. Take off shoes, put on your workout shoes, and it keeps the floor cleaner for everybody. Everything's better. Great idea. But she always tags those signs with, "We will suspend your membership if you don't." Like there's always a threat there, right? And essentially, when you look at it, I think to myself, initially I'm like, it's kind of assholey. But then I realized that people need to know where they stand. Okay, this is what's going to happen if you don't do it. Heads up. And she might, when I think about her, because I don't know her that well, but I've talked to her a few times. When I think about her, I think of her writing that note and thinking, man, I really don't want to have to do this. I don't want to have to take anybody's membership away, but I gotta enforce it somehow, right? For the good of everybody, right? And as much as it's a little bit, maybe a little abrasive when you read that sign, it's perfectly effective. Far more effective than if it were just a suggestion, right? People know where they stand. All right, well, I got to do this. It's time. I need to have respect for what's going on around here. And I like that. I think it's a good way to do it. And what that does is it accepts the nature of humanity. The nature of humanity is lazy, selfish, biased. Everybody's going to be able to rationalize why they didn't bring their indoor shoes that day. Everybody's going to have an argument why they didn't do it. And meanwhile, the carpet looks like shit. And there's salt all over the treadmill, right? So she's got to nip that in the bud. It is what it is. You've got to be sort of the authoritarian there. She owns the place. She wants to take care of it. She wants it to go well. And holy shit, it does. Everything goes great. Totally worthwhile. So making rules and laws, like, I'll give you another example. Nobody wants to have metal detectors at a school because it looks bad. Well, what do you want? What do you want to feel good when you walk in every day? Or do you want to like have a little bit of little prick in your side? Oh man, there's metal detectors here. But know that your kid's not going to get shot. Which one's better? You know what I mean? Like human nature, humans are, like I said, in general, and I always go back to the William Golding book, The Lord of the Flies. His philosophy about humans were that they were essentially bad. If you read that book, he illustrates that very well in the book, uses the story to do that. So yeah, I agree with that. Like, accept that they have some badness in them. They do. And so adjust to it. It's going to make your life easier, right? Yeah. Until Darwinism actually comes back into play, until survival of the fittest starts happening again, we aren't going to evolve at all. In fact, I would argue that humans are evolving in the wrong direction. Okay, especially here in the United States, where we've never been less healthy physically than we are. We've never been less satisfied with our lives than we are. We've never been more dependent on pharmaceuticals and technology than we are. Uh, we are essentially living in an oligarchy here. It's not good, and you can't really vote your way out of it. I think we're at the, and I'm not like a saber rattler, but I believe that most of what you see as far as the politics right now is just theater, just them fucking, it's like cramming it down your throat, trying to get you to, trying to propagandize you into voting for their side when there's not really, I don't know. Let me get back on point here. Yeah, humans essentially have some basic flaws, and you can accept that and act as if, or you can imagine that it's none of it's actually true and live your life floating around hoping it doesn't, and then eventually some motherfucker's got a gun to your head and I got to take him out. I'm not going to go to jail for murder. That's it. Be aware, adjust, accept humans for how they are. And when I say accept, I don't just mean believe it. I mean, be okay with it. Okay, that's how humans are. And if you can accept that in other people, it's probably because you're starting to accept it in yourself. Okay, I know I make mistakes, man. I'm prone to laziness sometimes. I'm certainly biased in my opinions sometimes. I know that. Probably not as well as I should know it. But the more you understand yourself, the more you can get this for other people. Anyway, I think you get it. All right, that's human nature. Accept it, understand it, be okay with it. Um, yeah, it's a weird world out there, but it's a good one, man. There's great people everywhere. There's great things everywhere. You know what I mean? Keep your feet moving. Keep your head on a swivel, folks. My name's Travis Neville. This is the Travis Neville Podcast. I wrote this book called Ideal Man Mastering Masculinity. I have not yet started recording the Audible, but I will get it done and get it out. Proud of the work. It's got pictures in it, soundtrack, just like everything else I do. Hope that in some way today's show helped you to get your shit together. Have a great week.